Welcome to this explainer. There's this quote from our sources today that just perfectly sets the stage. The ecological crisis is a crisis of relationship between humanity and the living world. It's philosophical, sure, but it is deeply, urgently true. And it hooks us right into what we're exploring today. We're going to go on a really fascinating journey, starting from literally just a single natural wall and building all the way up to the design of an entirely new, resilient society.
All right, let's dive right in. Today's explainer is called Ecological Living, from natural walls to autonomous villages. And as you'll see, we're zooming all the way out from the absolute micro level of a single natural home, right up to the macro level of how we can actually organize a functioning, resilient society.
So, here's our roadmap for getting there. First, rethinking modern habitat. Second, essential natural materials. Third, we'll go from the house to the eco-village. Fourth, autonomy across water, energy, and food. Fifth, the local and resilient economy. And finally, number 6, governance and collective intelligence. Let's get to it. Starting with Section 1, Rethinking Modern Habitat. Look, to really build a sustainable future, we absolutely have to face the flaws in our current setup. Just contrast the industrial model with the ecosystemic one. The industrial model is linear, it's highly polluting, and honestly, it's incredibly fragile when crises hit because it is just so heavily centralized. But then you look at the ecosystemic model. This is inspired by nature itself. It works in loops, and most importantly, it builds immense local resilience. It's not just a tweak, it is a fundamental paradigm shift in how we think about where we live.
Which brings us to Section 2, Essential Natural Materials. Now, unlike toxic industrial materials, these natural elements actually breathe, and they protect your health. Take wood, for example. It gives us massive structural support while drastically cutting down our carbon footprint. Then you have raw earth. People have used this for millennia, and for good reason. It has this incredible thermal inertia. It basically acts like a giant battery, regulating the temperature inside the home so you stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Lime is this wonderful, breathable, antifungal alternative to cement. And hemp? Hemp provides incredibly lightweight, phenomenal thermal and acoustic insulation. These are materials that actively work with the environment rather than fighting against it. But looking at all these materials leads us to a pretty massive question. How exactly do we transition from just having an individual eco-house to creating a complete, self-sustaining living system? Because, let's be real, a single natural house means very little if it's completely disconnected from its local ecosystem.
And that perfectly tees up Section 3, from house to eco-village.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that an eco-village is not about isolated doomsday survival. That's not the goal here. It is a highly structured, complete living system where habitat, food, energy, and governance are purposefully designed together. The whole point is to reduce our reliance on those fragile external systems we talked about earlier, build local resilience, and ensure everything works in a closed loop, exactly like biology intended. It is all about structured, practical community cooperation.
Moving right along to Section 4, Autonomy, specifically looking at water, energy, and food. So think of daily survival and autonomy like a pie, and we need to secure it locally. Roughly a third of this pie comes down to energy, getting it from solar, wind, and biomass. Another third is food, which is secured through things like permaculture and agroecology. And the beauty of those is that they actively regenerate the soil instead of just depleting it. And then the final piece of the pie is water, relying on rainwater recovery and natural filtration. When you lock these 3 systems together, they create true, stable autonomy for a community.
Let's zoom out again for Section 5, the local and resilient economy. So how did these autonomous villages actually survive economically? Well, the crucial point here is the massive contrast between a wasteful, linear economy and a highly efficient circular one. A linear model where we extract, produce, consume, and waste is ultimately bound to collapse. It just is. But a circular economy is inspired by biological symbioses rather than fierce competition. You take a resource, transform it, use it, and then reintegrate it. The waste from one process literally becomes the critical input for the next.
Let's walk through the actual actionable steps of this local ecosystem loop. Step 1, local production of resources. Step 2, local transformation. And this is great because it creates local jobs and crafts. Step 3, local distribution, which completely cuts out those massive, fragile global supply chains. And finally, Step 4, local consumption. This just proves that sustainable economies aren't some utopian dream, right? They are practical, operational realities that keep wealth and energy actively circulating right there within the community.
Finally, we reach Section 6, Governance and Collective Intelligence. To act as the brain of these communities, the source outlines this really beautiful rule of 3 to simplify governance. First, you have citizen sovereignty, meaning direct participation in referendums. Second is meritocracy. This means competence and action matter far more than social status or wealth. And third, mandatory transparency, which means total public access to decisions and finances. Working together, these 3 pillars create a system that truly serves the citizens, rather than dominating them.
And the genius of this governance is how it scales intelligently to avoid top-down centralization. The local or city level handles daily life, culture, and immediate needs, focusing on proximity and adaptation. Then the sectoral or national level focuses on expertise and coordinating large-scale infrastructure. And the global level, it only steps in for planetary coordination, like protecting the oceans, the atmosphere, and biodiversity. So power is distributed exactly where it's most effective, ensuring highly resilient, well-informed decision-making across the board.
Let's move to this final thought. Ultimately, the Earth works in a loop, reconciling humanity with the living world through natural building, circular economies, and collective intelligence is not going backwards. It is the ultimate step forward. It honors the perfection of natural creation and applies it dynamically to our modern lives.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative question to think about. Are we ready to stop dominating nature and start cooperating intelligently to preserve our shared future? The blueprints, the materials, the governance models, they are all right in front of us. It's time to apply these ecosystemic principles to our own lives. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.